Welcome to One of Those, a show that explores the art of sneaker culture. I'm your host, Adam Butler, back with another episode. Thank you so kindly for being here. On this episode, I got my man Tariq Star Baker here joining me. He is the lead designer behind Aglet Italy, man. Listen, when you talk about sneakers, right? We all know about colorways and color blockings and silhouettes and things like that. But one of the most important parts on the sneaker is something we sleep on, and that's the laces. But what if I told you this brother worked with some of the biggest brands to create premium laces? I'm talking about working with Rihanna, Puma, working with artists like her, all sorts of celebrities, all sorts of major brands. This dude is in the know. He's an artist. He's, of course, a fashion designer. And, of course, he's a sneakerhead. I'm not going to waste some more time, man. We're going to jump right into it. Without further ado, my guy, Star. What's going on, brother?
Man, what's going on, man? I'm here. Happy to be here, man. You know, we've been through a lot this year, so.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's a perfect way to put it. I on one of my other podcasts, it's when I was doing it like in the heart of the pandemic, like when things were crazy, I would always ask people, so it's a perfect opportunity to ask you, how are you doing, man? How are you holding up? You know what I mean? We like it's been a crazy year, but you have a bunch of amazing things going on, which we will get into, but just how are you?
Oh, as a person, I'm great, man. You know, I just had a birthday that just passed a couple of days ago.
Yes, sir. Happy belated.
I call that Happy New Year for me. Some people say Happy Birthday. I say Happy New Year. So,
I love it.
That's a fresh start. Anytime you get a fresh start is a great thing. So
no doubt, man.
Great.
I love it, brother. I love it, man. No doubt. So let's get into it, man. Let's just talk about you. You know, you again, we're going to get to talking about the brand and sneakers and all of that, man. But I just want to know how you got started, because what you do is interesting to me. I actually think it's an incredibly important part to sneaker culture and fashion culture right now when it comes to being creative. We're going to get to that. But just tell me about how you got started. What brought you to this business?
Well, what brought me in this fashion, footwear, all the way around the board, I think it was just the love for sneakers and the love for, I have always had a love for just making things look a little different than how they come. Yeah. So that was a start. When I was young, I used to paint. I don't know, back in the days, everybody used to airbrush and paint their shoes and change the color of their laces with them $5 shoelaces out of Foot Locker. They had the wall, or you go to Chinatown. I'm from New York, so I come from Long Island, New York, and go to Chinatown, and you go into a spot that have every color shoelace. So that was the start of me just having fun with that and just knowing what I like,
Yeah, man. The thing about the laces, and you've worked with some big artists, and it's just incredible what you're doing. But why I find it so interesting is that right now we're in this world that's like full of hype, you know what I mean? But there's also this movement to kind of go vintage. It's a really interesting kind of like dynamic happening where there's this vintage movement, right? This like movement to like, refurbish older clothing, and things like that to be different. But also in sneaker culture, it's like the hype of the hype is the stuff that everyone wants. Do you think that what you're doing and with the laces and the aglets and things like that, do you think that it's indicative, it's just kind of showing that people want to kind of stand out because everyone looks the same, especially when it comes to their footwear right now?
Yeah, everybody always wanted to stand out. I think it's just another way of expressing yourself. Your sneakers is a great way how you express yourself. Let's talk about like just some facts. How do most people get dressed that's into any form of fashion? They usually get dressed from the feet up.
Yes, sir.
You start with your sneakers or your shoes, and then you start working your way to the rest of your outfit. So I think a lot of people always want to stand out. A lot of my clientele or anybody who I worked with, it's just all about that little small detail, that those little small details matter. So I usually attract people that like really fine details.
And I can see that. And, do you think that it's really working because more people are less afraid to show that different side of them, to stand out, to stand out in a crowd? Do you find that more people are starting to think like that as opposed to, in the back?
I used to always say, you know, all right, I'll go even further. Like, remember you had a jean jacket back in the days, and you bought a jean jacket, and what the first thing you do, either you add some pins to it.
Yeah.
Because everybody can have a jean jacket. So you just add those pins to it, and your jean jacket just look cool, you know? Or rock and roll, you know, like a rock and roll moto jacket. These people used to add, you know, they used to add their own little touch to things, because everything can be manufactured, you know, but the key is to be original and stand out always.
Is that what fashion and art culture means to you? It's about
individuality? I think fashion is wearable art. I think your art, when you get it's just a certain way you feel, you know, when you pick your shirt out, you pick your hat out. You just know that it blends together. You know that the way that hat complements the brown in your shirt, you just know that this is going to really be like an art piece, and you're going to stand out. You're going to feel good, you know? So to me, that's the way I look at it. And I blends both. I mean, I didn't start out in high fashion. I started out just loving sneakers. A lot of what we do, to give you like the real true history of what we do, is like, we used to, you know, like shoelaces started for me because it was like a thing that we used to do back in the days, like changing out our shoelaces. But on top of just changing your shoelaces out, when I discovered this whole missing piece to the footwear industry that wasn't really tapped into at all when I started it, me and my friends, we just picked the area, and we used to just bring all our sneakers to those areas, and we'd swap out the laces, and we'd get a feel for how we like it. It just became a culture thing. And even our slogan is culturally driven with luxury standards. You know, like it just says it all right there.
It does. It really does, man. You know, because when Chuck introduced me to you, shouts to Chuck Keys, man.
That's my guy. Really good guy. Yeah.
Really good guy, man. And when he introduced us, I was just like fascinated, because again, you know, the thing about laces in the sneaker seems real simple. And again, with this show, a lot of my audience are people that's really just learning about sneaker culture. So I try to really present it, you know, that way. Cause like for some people, they may look at it and it's like, yeah, it's the shoestrings, right?
Yeah.
But
that
anybody, right? It's just like tennis shoe to me, but it's like no, it's, you know, I'm snobby about this type of thing, right? But when we look at, you know, when you get a new pair of sneakers and they come with multiple laces, the first thing I think is that's the way to make that shoe new, to make that sneaker new. You know what I mean? It's
so
like
all that was thought out. So you understand, when you buy a sneaker and it comes with like 3 laces or 2, it's all well thought out. But this all started with self-expression. Just companies start to see that you want to express yourself more, so they're adding that variety to the box. You know, and you know, so we're in that era, when we're in the social media era, we're in the digital era, when you know, major companies watch the customizers, you know, change the color of a shoe and watch the way they've done this and do this, and they utilize that. They like, we hear you talking, so we're going to answer that, you know? I started out a little different. You know, for me, I was the first one. You got to understand what I'm saying to you. I was the first one in history ever do a leather shoelace, make it look like a standard shoelace. Like if now you look at any customizer, anybody who makes sneakers, or another, even a shoelace company, they make leather shoelaces, or a major fashion brand, they making leather shoelaces. Like, I'm the first one that ever did that. That was never thought about. I was in that lane by myself for maybe 5 years.
Yeah. Why?
You know,
like what drove you towards that? I mean, it makes sense in hindsight, right? But what inspired you to do it that way? Because I've seen you I've seen leather laces before, but they look, you know, stiff and crazy. But you're right. Yours lay like actual, like the laces that come with.
Yeah. Well, what you've seen was, I mean, you probably from the era, what you've probably ever seen. The only leather laces you've ever seen is like back in the days, Timberland did a moccasin. Do you remember the moccasin? And it was it came with the cowhide square cuts in it.
Yeah.
And then like an Indian moccasin back in the days that's the only time you've ever seen leather put and operated as a shoelace. Before I came along years later. I came after the fat lace era, you know, after all these different things that people tried to put in shoes, and the way they express themselves. I came in a modern version of that. And then I took it from that modern version, from the sneakerhead culture, to the Jordan 1s, Jordan 3s, 4s, 5s, all of that, all the way up until all the way to a fat lace back again as a leather lace, you know? And then to now start doing sample shoelacing for high-end fashion brands.
Yes, which we're gonna get
and
to.
Then, then now designing sneakers all within myself. So, it's a transition perspective for me. Right. So it's like, it's the stages. And letting people understand that this is not an overnight process.
No, not at all. And you got to respect the process. And I want to talk about how you got to the point where you're, designing, laces for high end brands. And there's some big ones. You can talk about some of the brands you work with for sure. But how do you get to that? How did you get to the point where the bigger brands, where the high end brands, I should say, are starting to look at you and say, hey, I like what you're doing. How can we work with you?
Well, I think that so the first brand I worked with, period, was I got an opportunity from Puma to work with Rihanna on her sneaker, the Creeper sneaker. And that was like the first time I got a chance to show my skills as an accessory designer and to design something that Puma would be able to use for the release of her shoe. So I did a fat lace and suede to kind of complement the shoe. That was the first time I've seen, and then it worked and it was everywhere. I mean, Colette Paris, that's closed, but it was in Colette. It was every Puma store worldwide. Those was a gift to purchase with option to sell. So it was like when you're creating marketing gift of purchases for brands, they're going to find a way to utilize that because you're helping sell that shoe. So you're adding value to that sneaker. Yeah. So I just showed, it was just a way to show brands that I'm adding value to what you guys are already designing,
Yeah. And you know what? It's like you take something that is, it shows you like this new world we're living in. Well, not so much new world, but this era we're in where streetwear, so to speak, is collaborating with high-end wear. And I think that has a lot to do, and you tell me what you think about this, a lot to do with us just growing up. Frankly, right? Like,
I think we was already collaborating. It was already collaborating, but it wasn't as a dollar. We was already collaborating everything. Yes. Culturally, we collaborate things together. We mix it together. That's what we do. It's just that brands are starting to, like I said, we in a digital era, so brands can see what you're doing. So what they can do is, okay, that's what you're doing. That's what you want. We're going to give you that. We're going to test the market with that. And if it works, we'll give you a little bit more of it. So we already been doing that. They just happen to now see you. Everybody's using these digital platforms to be seen. And you got an opportunity to be independent and seen and express yourself in so many different ways now. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a win-win for everybody.
Oh, for sure. It's a win-win for everybody. Because I honestly, one of my original questions to you was going to be how much has social media impacted your sales and your brand, but you pretty much answered that. And I think that's really important. And I think it's really cool that, let's just keep it real. Back in the day, you talk about people like Dapper Dan, who just had a collaboration with Gap, is working with Gucci. Super dope, right? That's just
a legend. Yeah, he's a legend.
He deserves all of that, right? But back in the day, they were seeing what he was doing and going, thank you.
But you understand, how did they see him back in days to now? So remember, even for Dap to be back, you discover what he was doing. It wasn't during the digital time,
Yeah.
It's just that he created some designs during the analog era that made it into the digital era. And it so happened to cause some controversy that the world was like, oh, this guy was the original designer, because designers is getting their props due for working with brands, and there's a lot of designers that don't. I've worked with so many brands that you don't talk about, so But Dap is a legend. I like what Dap is doing, and the team that works, because people don't give the team enough respect. It's not just Dap, it's the people that that see the future of what Dap can do, and he has an incredible team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you know, and I only bring him up and other designers too that were a little ahead of their time, especially in the hood. Let's just keep it a buck, right? People
Right.
that
Yeah.
were, you know, because we creative. That's what we do. You know, black culture. That's what we do. We're creative, right? And a guy like
Right.
you, you're a creative, and you had an opportunity to be creative. But as you mentioned, social media helped you not only get your name out there and people to see what you're doing, but also I would imagine to protect your brand as well, because it stops somebody from doing what happened to that back in the day, which is like, oh, that's awesome. I saw this cool thing on the streets. Let me take it into the ballroom and present it as if it's my idea. What you're
Right.
with social media is, it's no doubt it's yours. You did that.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
see what I'm
Now
saying?
it's a win. It's a win and a loss because you create and you let the world see,
Mhm.
and then the brands themselves monetize off it versus you. But
Yeah.
it gives you opportunities to work with the brands. I didn't start out like I said. I just started out having fun
Yeah.
and just designing really cool accessories all the way
Mhm.
around the board, and then I just did them for the people that love details, and then
Right.
it just turned into more. But yeah, I worked with Puma.
Mhm.
And then I worked with Timberland. I worked
Mhm.
with Timberland a lot, which I like working with Timberland.
Yeah, you're a New
And
Yorker,
then,
man.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was designing. How I got into just taking it to the next level was I got an opportunity to present sample shoelaces to MCM.
Mm.
And then that was the door opener for me. And I've already knew that um, I was, I can take materials that's never been used before
Mhm.
or in that way
Yeah.
and add volume, because it's not about just designing the shoelace. It's
Mhm.
still how it has its touch to it, because
Right.
anybody can design a chord. It's not about that. It's
Yeah.
about how I everything that's chosen, which sneaker, how it lays, the
Mhm.
way of the design, how spot on I am when it comes to the brand, these
Right.
things are
Right. Right. And that's the art of it. You know what I mean?
right.
That's what makes you. So let me ask you this, man. Do you see yourself as more of a businessman, fashion designer, or artist? What would you describe
Vi-
yourself with? Mm,
Visionary.
mm, mm.
Visionary. I think that will say everything. So I think I have a little bit of all that in me with the
Yeah.
business. Obviously, I've done my time of working in the corporate world,
Mhm.
and then before that, I was already dealing with art. For example, just like a lot of talented people that you see out there, they have the first story. My first story was I was a barber. You
Yeah.
know, I used
Yeah.
to own barbershops. I had a bar. I was a barman. I grew up in Hempstead, Long Island.
Yeah.
I had the barbershops out there. I had two barbershops, and
Yeah.
I was expressing my art on in the hair,
Mm.
and then I'd seen bigger opportunities for me out in the world, and I worked in corporate for like 3 years.
Mm.
Just to
Yeah.
see how it is like to put on that suit and tie and do something different. And I was like, this is cool, but I need to get back to the art.
Right.
So I took some time away from everything and I just started designing. And I started out with like handbags, wallets.
Mhm.
A lot of people know me for that in the beginning. People always ask, oh, are you going back to handbags and wallets? I'm like, it's all a lifestyle. I only
Yeah.
design stuff that anything that I'm into.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tap in everywhere. I'm gonna go home. I'm
Right.
gonna go. My largest clientele is females. I always tell people
Mhm.
that people think, oh, it's the sneakerhead, the guys.
Yeah.
No, it's females. You know
Yeah.
why? It's the ladies because they respect those small details.
They do. They
Yes,
do. That's a fact. That's a fact, man. And even
yes.
as I,
They
as I look at,
appreciate them. They
mhm.
appreciate those details, and I appreciate the fact that that the ladies appreciate that particular thing.
Yeah,
So
man. Yeah.
I focus on that.
As you should. And I mean, if they're the ones that's appreciating it, you absolutely should do that. I'm looking up, I've looked at your timeline. I'm seeing, one of my favorite artists of all time, her,
Oh yeah,
rocking
yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff, man. I mean, it's an amazing thing, man. I think it's super dope what you're doing. Um, I do want to ask you though, because you talk about being a visionary and, you may not want to, give it all away now, but what's next for you? Because what I'm learning about you, and it's an honor to meet you, man, and definitely
Oh, come on,
converse
man.
with you,
Thank you,
bro.
man.
Because and I mean that sincerely,
No,
because
definitely.
I appreciate people that are visionaries, that are not afraid to do something different and chase and follow their dreams. Anybody listen to the show, they know at the end of the show, I'm always encouraging people to go do their thing, right? And it sounds
Right.
like that's what you are. So what would you say is next for you? What's the next thing for you?
All right. Well, I'm constantly designing all the time, but I'm designing a lot more footwear. In the future, there's going to be a lot more footwear. I think that I've been giving you laces for a lot of years. It's time to give you a lot more sneakers that come with those laces.
Let's go.
That's one. I'm designing a female line. I'm the creative director of a female line, and I'm the creative director of a denim line that's coming out. So I'm just tapping in. I think that I'm going to tap into home. Yeah. I'm going to tap into lifestyle. You know, I'm going to tap into all of that, but I'm going to start back off from the foundation of footwear where it started at for me. And I'm going back to footwear, you know, because we're going back to the circle. I mean, the pandemic changed things. Yeah. You went from, you know, just operating on this large scale to just operating on a mom and pop's scale and knowing how to, it just, you scaled back to scale up, which is really cool. I like that because now you was able to tap into another side of you that you didn't know that was there, or you didn't have to utilize that skill for a long time. So, you know, so to answer your question, what's next for me? A whole lot of fresh goods, baby.
I love it, man. I'm gonna be in contact with you, bro, man. You're doing amazing things. I'm super duper proud of you, man. Thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Thank really you, man. And we need, and let me thank you. I mean, you know, you thank people that join your show, all the creative people and all the sneakerheads. But without you, a lot of our voices won't be heard, you know? So it's guys like you that let the world know that, you know, there's people out here doing amazing things that they probably have never heard of before. It's going to be somebody that's going to listen to this interview that don't know who I am from a can of paint, you know? But when they look me up, they're going to see, oh, this kid has been doing his thing for a while. And just because of you. So we appreciate you just as much as you appreciate us, brother.
Thank you, bro.
Absolutely,
you, man. You're welcome back on the show anytime. Matter of fact, let's do this again, all right?
Absolutely.
All right.
My brother, love is love.
Love is love, brother. Big shout outs to Star for joining the show. Big shout outs to you for tuning in and always tuning in and supporting not only this show, but the On My Feet Network and the Up On Game Network. You guys are super dope and we couldn't do it without you. As always, I'll be back next week. So follow me on social media to find out what's going on with me and the team. MSR_Adam. MSR_Adam. You can follow the team at the Up On Game Network. And of course, the On My Feet Network. Remember to mind your mental health. Remember to mind your physical health. And always, always, always continue to be great. I'm up out of here.